topic is going to be stop Trumpism. I know a lot of people don't like Trump, and we tend to sometimes over personalize things that happen in this country. But there's a whole movement, a Trumpism movement, that is glaringly racist and fascist. So tonight's topic is about not just, okay, people voted Trump out, but how to stop Trumpism. And this show is produced by the People-Pueblo Party that believes in common sense politics for the people, the planet, and the animals. And also it is sponsored by the People's Health Project. Tonight we have very special guests, but before we bring in our guest, I'm going to have Brother Bill come on and do his welcome for this evening. All right, Bill, you on, bro? How you doing?
All right. Welcome everybody to 2021. Which the way it started hasn't really been different from 2020. And that's a good reminder. We know all the upheaval in the pandemic. I always say it's a dual pandemic. We had COVID-19, which is still going on. And we have a social uprising, which has been going on since the day they robbed us from our land. But for those of you that think that's subsiding, that is over, Trump reminded you on January 6th that it's far from over. And we need to keep that in mind. Let's not get complacent. And that's why we have shows like this, grassroots shows, because we got to be our own liberator. So welcome.
All right. Thank you, brother. Okay, so to start off tonight, we always talk about alternative media here, how we can't live by what CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News put out, because they all have an agenda. Their agenda is about supporting what the billionaires want and then making us think that it's what we want. And so tonight we're going to show part of a video produced by the Jimmy Dore Show, which is one of the alternative media that people should definitely get with and watch. That's the Jimmy Dore Show. You can catch it on YouTube, and then you can subscribe. And so we're going to use a piece of his show just to show what was happening in the Capitol, with the takeover of the Capitol. And so I also have a student, and she has four questions for us, Bill. And so as we go through the show, if she's able to put her questions on the chat, that'll be great. And if she's not able to do it, then I'll just read out her questions. But I told her we had a show tonight on this topic, and she was like, oh yeah, well, I got these questions. So I thought that was really good.
She's engaged. That's great. We need that.
That's right. That's right. So I'm going to put a short clip from the Jimmy Dore Show, and then we're going to go to discussion with our guests.
Look, a protester sits inside. Trump had tweeted this out. I don't know. I'll read this for you if you can't see it. It says the big protest rally in Washington, D.C. will take place at 11 a.m. on January 6th. Location and details to follow. Stop the steal. Look, a protester sits inside Nancy's. This is what's happening today. So Trump had tweeted this out.
Let me ask, I'm trying to stop the feedback from happening, so I'm going to try to do it this way.
I don't know. I'll read this for you if you can't see it. It says the big protest rally in Washington, D.C. will take place at 11 a.m. on January 6th. Location and details to follow. Stop the steal. So that was at January 1st at 2:52 p.m. And it was deleted after 29 minutes. So Twitter has been taking down the president's tweets. But this is what happened. So he called for this, and then this happened. So they showed up. Capitol on lockdown as Trump supporters breached the barricades. They breached the barricades, did they?
Yes. Yes.
By the way, look, could you ever see so many Antifa and Black Lives Matter protesters? So it's funny. It's like, so it was the Black Lives Matter and Antifa all summer, and now it's the Trumpers who went right to the Capitol with guns. Let's watch. As the U.S. Capitol throngs of protesters pushed past police who were trying to block them from entering the building as senators inside debated the certification of the presidential election. Some were able to breach security to successfully enter the building. So this is about that Trump has been saying that the election has been stolen, and a lot of his followers believe it. And so that's what this is about. They're coming to get justice. And so here's some more. We're going to show you what's been going on. So these are cops now beating on Trumpers. So remember all those Trumpers were saying how violent Black Lives Matters were and want you to just respect the cops, and what are the cops supposed to do? Of course. All right. And of course, now here they are.
Fuck, this is American blood! Fucking American blood! Pull them this way! Pull them!
It's getting pretty violent out there.
How you doing, pepper spray? Fucking pussy! Fucking pussy!
Here they are breaking into the Capitol. So you see what's going on. And people are calling on Trump to cancel this thing like it's some kind of a television show. Updates. Capitol breached by protesters. Woman shot inside. This comes as the Senate met about the election. A woman on the floor of the U.S. Capitol shot in the neck trying to breach a barred door, limp, gargling blood. It's like there's an anvil on my chest. Every horrific split second of Sarajevo in April 1992 is flashing through my mind. This is an extraordinarily dangerous moment. You want to see how the cops were actually reacting inside the Capitol? So that was just some of the cops reacting to some of the protesters. But here's the crazy stuff. You want to see it?
With my man. ACAF.
So they're inside the Capitol. They're protesting, and the cops are doing nothing. But they just, I don't know if you saw, that guy was taking a selfie with them.
With my man. ACAF.
What? Now, of course, so, you know, I don't even know what to say about that. Here's the police opening the gates and letting the protesters in. You think I'm kidding? Watch this.
Police are squabbling with protesters. Oh, there we go. And they just breached the Capitol again.
The cops let him in. The cops let him in. The cops are in here taking selfies with him. Doing nothing.
ACAF.
What does ACAF mean? I wonder what that means. I'm sure it's obvious and I'm missing it, but I don't know why. Understand why none of the cops are doing anything. Why aren't they cracking people's heads open? Why aren't they pepper spraying them? Why aren't they kicking them, putting their boots on their necks? Why aren't they smacking their heads against I mean, that's what they did all summer. We saw it. You want to see it? You want to see what they did all summer? Here's the difference between how they were handling most of the protesters at the Capitol today. So on the left is Black Lives Matter protesters from the summer, and on the right is Trump protesters. The cop is bringing her down the step. And then here's what they were doing. It's quite a juxtaposition. That's quite a juxtaposition. But anyway, so they are. It seems like these protesters are getting at certain times a lot
deferential treatment by the cops. Sometimes not. Sometimes, as you saw, the cops were punching them in the head and pepper spraying the hell out of them. But you want to see that, by the way. You want to see a cop walking a female protester who's obviously in fragile health. You want to see that cop walking hers down the step. That's what you want to see. But what we saw this summer wasn't that. What we saw this summer was if that was they would just push her right over and crack her head open, and then every member of the Buffalo Police would resign because they got So updates, Capitol. So there they are letting them in.
Police are squabbling with protesters. Oh, there we go.
Now, what that appears now, we don't know what that is for sure. We haven't talked to the cops who did this, why they let those people in, what that was about. But it certainly appears weird that they would let them in like that. But they did. The biggest police union in the U.S. just endorsed Donald Trump for president. Oh. And so Donald Trump called for this. And it just, you know how I feel about cops. I grew up with cops. My grandpa was a cop. My dad was a cop. My oldest brother was a cop. My best friends in Chicago were a cop. Half my neighborhood were cops in the south side of Chicago. The other half were criminals. And, cops are not out of control. If you're a genuinely good person and you care about people and you're not violent or a maniac and you won't cover for other criminals, they weed you out. So the police forces are mostly made up of those kind. They're made up of fucking people who are a half turn of a screw away from being maniac criminals themselves, or they'll cover for people who are maniac criminals themselves, which makes them a maniac criminal. And it's a culture of policing where they put their life before yours. So we've talked all about that. It's the culture. And the culture changes people, right? And if you're close to that, anyway, it's a culture. And so there you go. The police union in the U.S. just endorsed Trump. That's who the cops are. Cops are, come on. The police unions say they have no regrets in endorsing President Trump. Hey, where are the bullets and tear gas now? Where are the National Guard? Are these people not directly attacking cops? Are you going to tell me that? White privilege. White MFing privilege. That's for sure. I have authorized the federal government to arrest anyone who vandalizes or destroys any monument, statue, or other such federal property in the U.S. with up to 10 years in prison, per the Veterans Memorial Preservation Act and such other laws that may be pertinent. Oh. That was in June 23rd. Mm-hmm. Look, a protester sits inside Nancy Speaker Pelosi's office. We will not back down is scrawled on a folder. That guy probably get more done for the people than Nancy Pelosi did. I'd like to see what that guy would do. I would let him be speaker for a while. If it was a peaceful protest, the cops would have been there. They would have had the National Guard. They would
Well,
have
how
had,
many did they have out around Force the Vote?
That's right. Oh, so there was a force to vote protest. There was 40 protesters. They had 50 cops. So, all right. So here's Senator
selective.
Mike Crapo says, the violence we are seeing at the Capitol is wholly unacceptable. It must be stopped immediately and all perpetrators prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. God bless the Capitol Police, National Guard, and other law enforcement on the scene here and at other sites. Yeah, because they're in there taking selfies with them. The events of the U.S. Capitol are un-American and unacceptable. You know what's un-American and unacceptable? For a government to abandon its people in the middle of a deadly pandemic and causing an economic depression. That's what's unacceptable. That's how I feel. I think that's unacceptable.
Okay, welcome all. Hey, how you doing? So what I would like to do now is, before we discuss, and I know all of y'all already saw the video, or the part of the video that we showed, and I think, you know, there's certain questions that people have about what happened, including, you know, what actually, in your opinion, happened, and then what events led to this, Bill. And I think you had talked about that last time we were here. And maybe we can start. Maybe you can introduce yourselves, and you could do a quick introduction. And let's start from, I guess, from the left. Sharon, you're there. Maybe you can introduce yourself, your organization, and where you organize.
Sure. Sharon Black. I'm with the People's Power Assembly here in Baltimore, and also a writer with Struggle La Lucha.
All right, thank you. And Brother Siddiqui, Brother Shep, just your name, your organization, and where you organize, and then we can get into the discussion. Oh, I see. Okay, brother. Yeah, we can hear you now. But you gotta move back from the camera. You're way too close.
Okay, because I heard the video, but I don't hear you.
Yeah. You can't hear me? Oh, he just muted himself. Let me try to unmute him. How about now? Are you good now? No? Okay. All right. So, well, let's start with the discussion, and what I'll do, Bill, I'll go off stage and try to help Brother Shep back on. Okay?
Okay.
So Sharon, maybe you could, kick it with Bill for a minute around your interpretation of what happened in DC.
Sure.
All right, Sharon, you want to take it away?
Sure. I mean, I thought the video was very interesting that was just shown. Probably they didn't have all the information at the time, because some of the way in which events unfolded are a little bit different than what the reality was, which was even worse than what was portrayed on that video. When people are talking about the arrests, they didn't come after I don't even want to call it, I'd rather call it like a right-wing insurgency, a failed coup attempt. It didn't actually happen till after the curfew was set, and there had been an outpouring of anger and outrage at what had taken place in the Capitol. Then they called for a curfew. And so the arrests that people saw in those video didn't take place till later. Initially, there was obviously collusion between the Capitol Police and Trump's fascist forces, is what I'm going to call them, the Confederate flag waving, and, the folks who had on T-shirts talking about Auschwitz. I mean, it was a horrendous thing that a lot of people had witnessed, and people were very angry. And so that is sort of really how the events unfolded. I kind of consider it, a fallback to, well, let me put it this way, a failed coup attempt by Trump and the forces that he represents, that I would consider, both fascist and demagogic in their appeals to people. They could have not succeeded in anything they did without collusion from the Capitol Police And anyone who's worked on permits in Washington, D.C. knows that, Capitol Police have been the hardest to deal with. If you even walk onto the Capitol grounds without, a permit, or even try to go in, you have to go through metal detectors, et cetera, et cetera. I could point out all sorts of violations in the Capitol Police. It had to be higher up than even the individual cops in the Capitol for that to have taken place the way it took place. So that's just a little bit of what I saw from Baltimore, and watching carefully all the news and seeing, the time frame in which things took place. And it was an inside job. They obviously knew where to go, and that's been documented. And there were also people, Congress folks, who were letting them in the side doors. So it wasn't something just accidentally that happened that way. And for people to know, is there's been a widespread amount of information going out that they're going to come back on the 17th and also target capitals, all 50 capitals. Of course, there were 10 capitals that were actually targeted, and also racist attacks that went on the West Coast that aren't getting as much publicity, including a young Black woman who was nearly beaten to, in California.
Well, I appreciate that, but when you think about it, I mean, we've seen this script before. When Barack was in the White House, there was often breaches, people climbing over the gate to get on the lawn. There was many breaches then, where it didn't happen prior to or his predecessors. When you think about the assassination of Dr. King, you had the police department was suspect and was missing, and they gave all Blacks off, even though Blacks realized the importance of Dr. King and the importance of the time in the 60s, and they was willing to work for free. So this is something that the government has done for decades. This is nothing new to us. So what happened was it's been a long time in coming. But like we said earlier, or when we was talking amongst ourselves on other programs, like Malcolm said, the chickens come home to roost. So this is nothing new to us. And when you look at what happened.
Hold on, Bill. Hold on. Because my student, the one that was asking me questions.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. And we can see you, but you got to back up from the camera.
I can't hear you.
Okay. So, all right. So I guess I didn't fix that problem. But so I'm going to let Brother Shep keep working on the sound. But Bill, my student wants to know, when you say chickens coming home to roost, she wants to know what led to this. What do you mean by chickens coming home to roost? What does that mean?
Well, that was a phrase that Malcolm X had coined. And basically in generic, simple terms, like Denzel said in Philadelphia, explained to me like I'm a 3-year-old. It means that basically what you got what you asked for. You know, if you go to the store and you steal and then you get arrested, you deserve that. And that's what the United States government deserves. They have created a dynamic in which they allow white people to do whatever they want. And in this case, Malcolm was talking about John F. Kennedy. John F. Kennedy was a Catholic white, and he got assassinated. All right. And he was assassinated by another white man, allegedly white man. Yeah. So Malcolm basically was saying to them when he coined the phrase chicken come on the roof, what do you expect? You created this dynamic. You made this acceptable. Now I bit one of yours in the ass, and now what do you, I mean, it's turn around, it's fair play. So when you see the government in turmoil and it got out of hand further than they wanted to, even though they mapped this out, and the publicity and the blowback and the jobs and the careers that people going to be lose, like Trump is losing all kind of honorary degrees. He's losing money with them taking away the PGA tournament from him. He won't get that again. The backlash on Giuliani, that was long overdue. 9/11 was the best thing that happened to him, saved him. But in due time, if you believe in God, all things come full circle. So when you say the chicken come home to roost, it only means that you got what you deserve. The harm that came upon you is the harm that you deserve. That was just a matter of time. I hope I explained it where they can understand.
Yeah, that's good. Let me go to Sharon. Sharon, what do you think the role of the mainstream media has been in this whole debacle, this whole takeover of the Capitol? I mean, what do you think their role has been?
Well, is it okay, Mark? I wanted to say a little bit more because I agree with what Brother Williams said.
Absolutely.
And I wanted to say a little bit to what your student was asking because I think it's an important question. And I would assert that.
By the way, Sharon, all the questions I'm asking are the ones she gave me.
Oh, okay, cool, awesome. Well, let me just say this to your other question is that if you look at it, sort of what the mainstream Democratic Party did was a failure to address this very threat as soon as they actually, when Trump came into office. Literally at that time, if they had called out people to actually impeach Trump at that time, which they didn't really, never made an effort to counter them around the very issues that he should have been impeached on, and that is around racism and the attacks on the working class in general. And if you look at it, you remember the big, massive women's demonstrations, whichever they had a lot of shortcomings in terms of their demands. But there was a whole youth movement. People could have been called out into the streets by the Democratic Party, but they didn't do that. And they're not going to really fight this threat either. I mean, we can see that, okay, there's been some, I think it's a lot of crap that they're going to really come down on this grouping. It really is going to take, I think, an independent movement to address this threat, which I see as a threat beyond just what they represent against the so-called mainstream Democratic Party politicians. It's really a threat against the entire working class. But I do think the question is important because all along there was a literal road to what took place. I mean, they didn't really oppose racism in the way that they needed to do it. So, I agree with Brother William about the chickens come home to roost. I mean, this is the, when you allow the Democratic Party to be the ones, to so-called lead the struggle against these folks, it's not, you're not going to get anywhere. I think Bill disappeared now. So it's between, oh, good.
No, I'm
good,
still here.
Okay.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
That's my comment.
No, I'm still here. I just want to comment. I just want to say two things. One is, I wish I could take the credit for the chicken going come home to roost, but I always want to get at one of my teachers, and that's the great Malcolm X. That's his statement, amongst many. And also, when you talk about some of the flaws in the women's movement, that they had, the women's march, what have you, was the treatment of Tamika Mallory. They tried to defer what she actually stood for by trying to tarnish her and change the narrative. So no matter what we come up against, we always the government has not changed. Leopards, my mother said, leopards doesn't change their spot. It's the same game. And I was thinking about, moving forward with the inevitable celebration of Dr. King. I was sharing this with Mark, and it's a statement that I will take credit for because I never heard it before. Are we a change taker or a change maker? Because change gonna come. So that's what something that we have to, like you talk about, and Mark often talks about, and nationalists and movers and shakers in their own right talk about, if you want anything to do a change, you got to be your own liberated, and we can't depend on the system at hand because this is a system that's been oppressive to us from day one.
So let me get back to that question about the role of the media, because on this show, we're constantly telling people not to depend on MSNBC, CNN, Fox News, and we offer up alternative media, including Jimmy Dore and the Real News Network, the Black Agenda Report, the Gray Zone Project, this program here. Ralph and Betty, Sister Betty and Brother Ralph have a show on a Blog Talk Show Tuesday nights. Black Veg Fest has a show on Instagram. So what do you think, Sharon, about the role of the media and how they've been portraying this?
Well, you have to go back before the actual events on Wednesday and kind of look at how they were misrepresenting and portraying the Black Lives Matter movement. When I say Black Lives Matter movement, I mean the movement against police terror and racism, not so much any one particular group. I'm talking about the movement, the people who were out in the streets. That was so skewed in how they reported that, that, you could just see, the difference. And so I don't even know if they would have portrayed the events Wednesday, accurately, except for that it became so obvious. And there are certain things that they can't even ignore right now. And I don't think they will be the avenue in which really there'll be a real people's investigation to the collusion amongst people higher up with this act of sedition or whatever you want to call it. And I don't think they'll be the answer to figuring out what took place at the top within the Capitol Police, because as much as the individual cops, many of them we already know, and it's been documented that they are fascists themselves, members of KKK and all these other groups. That's all documented. But really, this type of thing would have had to have collusion further up. And I don't know how much we'll see a real independent people's investigation without pressure from the people themselves. But I would contend that we need a bigger movement to take on all the issues, which actually, that's why we ought to talk a lot about the Dr. King marches that are happening around the country, because in some ways, I think that's the antidote to the forces that we saw in the Capitol and what they really represent, which is to go back to the Confederate period. That's what they want to do. Make no mistake about it. Some people call them populists. I think that's an absolute mistake. The populists in this country were between the farmers and the workers. It was a movement that actually had many, many problems. And one of them is that they didn't understand the question of fighting against national oppression or racism. But nevertheless, this is not what this movement is. It's not a populist movement. It is a fascist demagogic movement who's aimed at immigrants, aimed at Black and Latinx and indigenous people. And so I don't expect that the media will do as much as it could and should do, and it definitely didn't do it before. And now they kind of got their pants down, if you so to speak. But I don't think they will investigate or do the kind of job, at least not the big media, not NBC and CNN and the rest of them.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking to Brother Joe Kay before, and he was talking about historically when fascists take power is with the collusion of the elites. It's with the collusion of the business elites and the capitalists. And so that this thing didn't actually take power because, the military, the intelligence services, the Chamber of Commerce, where all these billionaires decide what parties they're going to give money to. I was watching a lot of this on Fox News, and Fox News was talking about riot, was talking about, takeover, was talking. And, Fox News is usually a cheerleader for this kind of a thing. But I think that, and I was watching some old Hitler videos and shows. And at the time, people thought Hitler was a buffoon, just like we are thinking, Trump is just a con man. He's just out for himself. He's actually now created a movement, a Trumpism that is fascist, right? And so I think that what a lot of our people have to do, they have to take that hate, that disgust for Trump, and now understand that as Trumpism or as a fascist movement, we have to fight that. And, in the Latino community, there was a lot of talk about, Latinos voted for Trump, but Latinos usually split 2/3 for the more progressive candidate and about 1/3 for the conservative or reactionary candidate, because there's Latinos in this country that were brought here so that they can undermine, and they can be financed and trained to undermine, the Venezuelan Revolution, the Cuban Revolution. And so this whole dynamic of Trumpism is really, for those of us who know history, read history, we know it's fascism. But what we have to do, because the Democratic Party wants people to think, our people in our communities, especially Black and Latino people, to feel like, oh, this whole thing got messed up when Trump got there, right? And that's not the case. You know, they allowed Trump, it's like Bill says, and they allowed these racists to, you know, do what they want, and so it came back to bite them. But you know, I want to get to this piece now that you raised. That was a great segue in terms of what the solution is, because we can clearly identify the problem. We saw the problem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring us off stage, and I'm going to show a short clip from Chairman Fred, who's the chairman of the Black Panther Party in Chicago. He was, you know, taken from us at 21 years old. But, you know, I was thinking hard the other day. I said, man, what's going on? What are we supposed to do? And Chairman Fred spoke to me. And so I want to play a small clip where he can speak to our audience as well. So I'm going to play him now. Okay. So let me put him up. Put him up here. And get it here. Let me do these. Okay. So this is Chairman Fred Hampton from the Black Panther Party Chicago speaking, and I'll just play it right now.
What makes them mad about it is that they had Black people and white poor people and red poor people and Puerto Rican poor people and Latin American Puerto Rican people of poor people of all descents. They had them caught up in movements based on racism when the Black Panther Party stood up and said that we don't care what anybody says. We don't think you fight fire with fire best, we think you fight fire with water best. We're going to fight racism, not with racism, but we're going to fight with solidarity. We said we're not going to fight capitalism with black capitalism, but we're going to fight it with socialism. We stood up and said we're not going to fight reactionary pigs and reactionary state's attorneys like this and reactionary state's attorneys like Hanrahan with any other reactions on our part. We're going to fight their reactions where all of us people are getting together and have an international proletarian revolution. Right on. Right on. And that's saying all power to the people. Right on. That's saying that no matter what color you are, there's only two classes. And that's saying there's a class over here and there's a class over there. And the reason that this class over here has never did anything to get this class off its back, because this is lower, this is upper, this is the oppressed, this is the oppressor, this is the exploited, this is the exploiter. And these people in this class have divided themselves. They say, I'm black and I hate white people. I'm white and I hate black people. I'm Latin American and I hate hillbillies. I'm hillbilly and I hate Indians. So we fighting amongst each other. And you've heard the testimony of pigs here. You got pigs of all colors, you know that. You got pigs that are white, you got pigs that are black, you even got pigs that are black and white. Propagating the same type of madness that this buffoon Hanrahan would be propagating if he were here himself. And why? Because they want to keep you to believing that I'm your enemy, and that everybody else that's black and that wears a lot of hair on his head and hair on his face, they want to keep you thinking that he's your enemy. Why? Because if ever you would disregard him and overlook him just for a minute and throw away that question of racism and start into dealing with a little logic, then there would be no one else you could attack other than Hanrahan, other than Davy, and other than Tricky Dicky Nixon. If you make the right decision, then the oppressed people of the world will get complete satisfaction. I know you return a verdict of not guilty. Thank you.
Okay. So I know y'all had seen the video before, because I sent it to y'all before. And I think that, you know, leading from what you had proposed, Sister Sharon, is this whole idea of solidarity. You know, Bill and I and other folks, and you have participated. We started something called the People's United Front, which has folks from Detroit, Oakland, New Orleans, Baltimore, New York, New Jersey. And I think that really the words of Chairman Fred really lead the way to how we defeat Trumpism and the fascists in this country. And what I want to do a little bit is talk about what this concept of solidarity is. Because I think if people understand that idea, then our actions will lead us in the right direction. So would anybody like to talk about that first? And Brother Shep, I don't know if you can hear us finally. But anyway, whoever likes to speak first could just jump in.
Well, you're talking about in terms of the course of action on the 18th, of course, right?
Chairman Fred's concept of solidarity and how that should inform our practice, which then we're going to talk about the 18th. Or you can include the 18th in, in what he wants.
All right. Brother Fred was talking about, like I was telling Mark, I heard his son speak at the state office building, is a prolific speaker as well. It basically is divide and conquer. Basically, it's diversionary tactics. And he's telling everybody that basically, in layman's terms, that you got to stay focused. And I agree with him, because they have always used, the government has always implemented covert ways in order to get us off our square, to turn us against each other. I mean, way back as the Willie Lynch letter. First they said African Americans is incapable of reading and writing. So then that wasn't enough. They started picking on the hair textures and things of that nature. But Fred Hampton is saying, basically, you got to stay focused. Don't let them think for you. Think for yourself. And it really comes back to, you want to be liberated, you got to be your own liberators. You really got to see the signs of the time. I've seen somebody in the text talk about the right-wing call for Blue Lives Matter is a complete hoax, since the death of 4 police officers was committed by these fascists. And it's true. And I also like to add, you got to go back to believing in yourself. And that's what he was basically talking about. And any leader, whether it's the Black Muslim, in particular Malcolm X, they always talk about believing in yourself from within. And when you think about it, you got to say that's true. Because you think about the highest form of admiration and imitation. And we said Black Power. Then they came out with an organization in the 60s with white power. We said Black Lives Matter. They talk about Blue Lives Matter. They copycat everything we do. And all we're saying is we believe in ourselves, even if you don't. Don't try and take and distort the message. Because when we say Black Lives Matter, we mean as in TOO also. We know all lives matter. It just seems that people don't think that our lives matter. We know by just the optics, and they're real, as how we were doing peaceful demonstrations in the summer or in the 60s. You look at what Bull Connor did. You look at how they use pellets and their shields and was just bashing people and unprovoked pushing people off the bike and things of that nature, and how they had an overabundance of aggressiveness and an overabundance of pay our taxpayer money overtime. And on this case, all of a sudden, they knew this was coming. He was talking about this for 4 years, and he even said it in a tweet that only took 30 minutes to circulate it on January 1st. But still, they were ill-prepared. They weren't ill-prepared. Everybody did their job. Those that was in charge did their job. Those that let the men do their job, everybody did their job. And so going back to Fred Hampton basically saying it's our job to solve this riddle, and that is within us. We just got to stay pat. We got to be revolutionary. We can't be scared to make the ultimate sacrifice, which he did not deserve, and put his wife through that traumatic experience. He didn't deserve this. And even when they played in according to the law, where you had the right to bear arms, the government is always changing the rules according to how we interpret it, how we use the rules. So that's what I was saying in terms of Fred Hampton and tying it in from the way we was brought here. So we can't expect nobody to have an epiphany one day. That's got to be us. And when you look at that, you do an overview and you think about the black and brown lives that was lost. You also got to incorporate white America too, because white America played the role even though by and large it was an unflattering position they took. But you had white Americans that was conscious enough to help out too. So you have to salute them as well.
I wanted to.
Yes.
I just wanted to add to a couple different things because I think some of the comments are answering the question very well. Jose's comment is sort of what I was going to say. We really have to bring people together, and solidarity is the answer, is what I got out of the Fred Hampton clip. But as a person living in the 60s, I did want to say one thing that harkens back to our just previous conversation. You can't expect the FBI or the police to investigate this and there to be justice. And, you know, when I watched that Fred Hampton clip, I just remembered back to the murders of the Panther Party. And of course, some of the many political prisoners who are still literally incarcerated to this day, to really see that they're not on our side and they're not going to do any investigation and they're not going to end this fascist threat one way or the other. I think that what Jose was stating is so important because we have to have solidarity, but it's got to be solidarity based on, as he put it, couldn't say it any better, respecting the right of oppressed communities for self-determination. I think that's key. That's why one of the things that I think that the Dr. King activities are very, very crucial is that we raise and continue the fight around police terror and racism. Because really what this is attempting to do is like a counter-revolution against that uprising that took place in the summer. And last but not least is I think that part of what Mark was saying, Brother Mark, around the United Front is it's important that people unite right now. I mean, we can have a lot of differences on our interpretation of events, our solution. I'm a revolutionary socialist. Some people may have different views on the answers, but we have to be united against a common enemy. And I thought that Fred Hampton's clear explanation of classes and what class are you in and what class are we opposed to and who are enemies is important. So I mean, that's my 2 cents on it. And I think some of the discussion that's going on and the question about how we mobilize the working class, I think it's around concrete issues. One, I think that to fight racism, we shouldn't be frightened by that. We've got to do it strongly to push these forces back. But we also have to mount a very concrete campaign around the very things that people need, you know, whether it's housing, you know, the right for decent, affordable housing. I think that the Panther program, as was put, whether, you know, it's reworked to our particular situation under COVID is another question. But some of those basic things about workers' rights, the right to, you know, and this is King's contribution, jobs or income now, all these things that people are fighting around. We need to up the ante on it, get in there, help organize, be bold, and take on these fights, because really that's the only thing that actually unites people is when they have a common thing that they can work around, and then they see that, and people see they're not each other's enemies. But anyhow, there's a lot of good comments that are coming up here. So,
all right, thank you. Let's see your brother Shep. Shep, you can hear us now. We could always hear you. Yeah, we could always hear you, always. So
okay, I'm just making sure.
Yeah,
I do all kinds of technical stuff here.
Yeah, we got him. So we finally got it. So Shep, what do you think about this whole concept of solidarity? And then we're going to move into what's actually happening on Dr. King's Day. So what do you think, brother?
All right. Since I missed out, and you know, I can talk real fast, so I'm gonna do that. Just to go back to the whole piece with Jimmy Dore's piece.
Mm-hmm.
First time I actually heard him was just before you sent it to me. Somebody had sent it to me, so I think he's pretty good. But one of my teachers back in the day, Professor John Henry Clark, he told us that if the Europeans basically had not come out of Europe, that they would destroy themselves. Look at the Visigoths and the Vandals and all of that. And one of the things that we looked at is Hitler's worst crime was that he divided up the white race. He split it up to different parts. And that's why they hated him so much. Trump's crew attacking the Capitol, just like Trump supported the Civil War and the Confederacy and don't take down the statues. It's nothing that should have been surprising to people. But they're not going to allow white folks, wherever they consider themselves to be supremacists or whatever, to attack other white folks, meaning the Capitol. All right. I have to disagree, with all due respect, Sister Sharon. I think they are going to go forward. They did the same thing back in the 70s and the 80s with the Ohio 7, the Weber Underground, and all those, what we used to call back in the day, white mother country radicals. A lot of folks, SDS, all that, they took off their revolutionary gear and they put on their suits and ties and they abandoned the movement. We still have political prisoners in jail now that were forgotten about. Matulu's in there, even though we have folks like Marilyn Buckley eventually let release. You know, she died a few days later due to conditions. And they are going to use them as an example, not just going against the government, but to set a precedent, so to speak, again, that is Black and brown people uprise and raise up. This is what's going to happen to you. So they're going to go after them. They're already doing it. They got the Warner posters out. It's all set up. They're nothing but cannon fodder. They're nobodies. They're going to go after them just to prove a point. And that's going to happen. You sit back and you watch it. That's just what I'm saying based on my historical analysis. Getting to Fred Hampton. Again, I'm trying to talk as fast as possible. I know our time is limited. But I don't know if this was said already, but that was the original Rainbow Coalition. You know, and we said that over and over again. White power for white people, brown power for brown people, red power for red people, yellow power for yellow people, and black power for black people, all power to the people. And we said that, and Fred set that precedent, you know, even before the Rainbow Coalition with the street organizations. He was a threat at 19 and 20 years old before they assassinated him at 21. You know, with the Disciples and the Black Peace Stone Nation and all those street organizations, who's the biggest threat of all to this country is our youth. You know, and they used that as the Bible to attack New York in the 70s with the Black Spades and the Ghetto Brothers and all the other groups. And so these so-called Proud Boys, that's nothing new to us in the hood. We had the Golden Guineas. We had the white ministers. Before us, there was the Fordham Baldies. We had all of that already. So we used to dealing with those fools. So that's nothing new in terms of what white supremacy is. It's a matter of us controlling our own community, all the institutions in our community. That's where the Panther survival programs came in. And defending the hood to the hilt, not walking around styling and profiling with automatic weapons out of your community, which is one of the things we always got after the guardian angels about. Why are you patrolling the subways instead of patrolling your neighborhood? We have to protect our own neighborhood. These fools might decide to be stupid enough to come in the hood, but we ready for them. Trust me, they ain't coming in the hood. So as long as they out there fighting and killing pigs and killing themselves and attacking the establishment of this country, I got no problem with it. That's on them. But they are going to pay the price for going up against this government. Because as you said earlier, it's not just about them or the police. I mean, it was already said in the film. The union supported Trump, FOP, PBA, all the rest of those pigs who keep our political prisoners in jail all the time. And so we know who the enemy is. It's just a matter of us letting the community know, setting up our political education classes again in the hood when this chemical and biological pandemic is over with, and organizing in the streets and in our communities. That's what we have to do. And I think that's all I ran through real quick, trying to do as fast as possible. All power to people.
All power to the people. All power to the people. Freedom all. Thank you, Brother Shep. Sorry we had all the technical difficulties, but I'm glad we finally cleared that up. And I guess now we could talk about what's happening on Dr. King's Day and why is that significant in this particular time. Bill, you wanna start us off, because I know you're the one who first mentioned it earlier, and you know, in terms of what's happening on Dr. King's Day in Harlem.
Was saying I agree with you straight ahead with that. Yeah, because everything is seeming like it's aligning itself.
Oh, that was weird. I think we lost Bill.
Wow.
We lost Bill. That is wild. I don't know if he pressed something or I pressed something, but
he comes back just real quick.
We got a nice leaflet up there.
Yeah, well, I guess I'll have to do it in the meantime.
Yo, Mark, the media piece.
Yeah.
Trump's been raising billions of dollars over the last 4 years.
Yeah.
Don't be surprised when he has his own TV network.
Yeah.
His own multimedia, you know.
Right.
It's going to happen. Trust me. They've
Right.
been raising money to do that.
Yeah.
And that's going to come out. So everybody's celebrating by him getting kicked off Twitter and all of that. Watch it.
Yeah.
It's going to happen.
Well, he did say that he was going to start his own media thing.
Yeah.
But let's get to the January 18th in New York City. We're gonna be part of a national day of action on Dr. King's Day. We're gonna have a car caravan from Washington Heights down to Central Harlem. We're going to have a speak out in front of the state office building on 125th Street. That's going to be from 2 to 4 p.m. The car caravan is going to start around 12:30, and then we're going to have that evening on the 18th. We'll have this show again. And I hope y'all can come back and give us a recap of your activities. So that's the idea, and it's under the People's United Front, which is taking a page from what Chairman Fred was teaching us, that we need to organize poor and working people, and that we need to be clear on that they're the ones who are going to make the change in this society. And so we've connected with a lot of other groups, including Sharon's group and Brother Shep's group, and other groups in Oakland and Detroit and New Orleans. And maybe, Sharon, you could talk a little bit about what's happening in Baltimore.
Yeah, just very quickly. We're going to be gathering at 12 noon at 20th and North Charles Street for anybody that's in our area, in the Baltimore vicinity. And then rallying. Primarily, we're going to be doing a virtual rally, but then car caravanning from Baltimore City to Jessup and to the ICE Detention Center. Jessup is one of the major prison complexes, and we've been working on a number of cases demanding that free them all. And there's been an outbreak of COVID, of course, it's everywhere. And so people are going to the jail complex to raise those demands along with the other demands of the people's mandates. So I won't go into too much more, but we're like proud to be part of the United Front, and we're definitely going to be as big as possible on that day. And of course, we're demanding jail Trump.
Yeah, let me ask around the ICE piece of that. So you're gonna start in a prison in Baltimore.
Well, we've been going to the jail in Baltimore. Jessup is the major state facility, and there's a number of cases of prisoners who've reached out to us, and we're trying. We've been waging a campaign to free them. And on top of it, right 10 to 15 minutes away, there's the ICE Detention Center that we've also had many protests at. So we're just going to make the car caravan go in a circle, both to the state jail facility there. I don't want to get into all the concrete cases because that would take too long.
Right.
People have reached out, but both are connected. So
and the ICE center is where they detain immigrants, right?
Immigrants, yeah.
Who are going to be deported. Is that how that works?
Yeah, but they've been mostly languishing, in the detention center there and facing the same threat of COVID as the other general prisoners in Maryland State Prison. So we're demanding we've been demanding they shut them both down, frankly, abolish prisons, abolish the ICE detention centers.
Right. I don't know if y'all remember when Roots was on TV, and there was this idea. There's this quote in there from one of the characters that says, "Men in chains are brothers." So I guess it would be because of the rise in incarceration of sisters, we would say people in chains are united, or have a common cause. So that's a very interesting route that y'all decided to take there.
Yeah, and just so you know, the Jessup jail system is both the women's center and also the men at the same time. So we'll be hitting all three actually.
Good, thank you, Brother Shep. What's happening with our political prisoners in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania?
Yeah, basically, this whole year, 2021, is being dedicated to the freedom for all U.S. held political prisoners and prisoners of war, by the United States. And as part of that, we're looking at the whole weekend of Martin Luther King as being events and actions that will take place. On the 18th, which is the holiday for King, that the government put up, his actual birthday, we should know, is on the 15th. But King was a political prisoner. People might not agree with his nonviolent strategy, but he was a political prisoner. And we look at our political prisoners today who are mostly forgotten and ostracized, and movements basically ignore them or put them on the back burner. And they should be up front and center. And that's what we're concentrating on this year for. Because there's no movement that takes place in this country that our captured freedom fighters were not involved in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s. They all were involved in that, and that's why they're captured now. Sundiata is 84. Rochelle McGee is 81. We have most of them in their 70s, the late 70s and late 60s. They have to come home. COVID has hit Russell, Maroon Schultz, and Matulu Shakur. So we're dedicating that day for Russell Maroon Schultz on the 11th. We have caravans, we have vehicles coming from Pittsburgh and from Philadelphia, and we're looking for vehicles that come from New York City. During the COVID crisis, when it first jumped off, we call them the Gang of Four. Pennsylvania, New York, Connecticut, and New Jersey, those governors all got together and said they were going to work together to stop COVID. Well, they haven't done jack crap. Okay, I don't know if I can curse on here now, so I won't do that. But our people are dying. It's genocide, straight up. That's what's going on in these prisons. Our black and brown brothers and sisters are dying all across this country by the thousands and being affected. And you don't hear the media say anything, with few exceptions. Nobody's talking about them. So we're gonna, our caravan basically is called Justice is Dead. And so we're gonna have a hearse. We're gonna have all those vehicles from those areas. And we're gonna go to Harrisburg, the state capital. There'll be a press conference there, some other activities. And then we're gonna move on to an undisclosed destination that we're not gonna put out here publicly. So if you go to Harrisburg, you'll find out where we're going. And of course, after that, we're going to hit Jersey, we're going to hit Connecticut, and we're going to go see that fool up in New York and Albany. So that's basically what we're doing. The reason why this 2021 is so important, George Jackson was assassinated 50 years ago in prison. The Attica Rebellion happened 50 years ago, in the upstate New York prison. We're having an international tribunal this year in New York City to deal with this whole issue of our political prisoners. That's going to happen right after Black August. So this is our year to put this out there, and any group that's claiming that they're dealing with social issues that doesn't deal with our captured freedom fighters, we're going to get on them and make sure they push them forward, because it's time for them to come home.
All right. Freedom.
I put my email in the chat box. Sister Sharon, I would appreciate if you could send me that information about what's going on in Baltimore, because for some reason I don't have it. So we need to make sure that everything that goes on that weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, for King's weekend, is put out there.
All
Free
right.
them all.
Free them all. So, thank you. And Bill, we know you got cut off, so Jose has a very specific question for you. And
all right.
I already answered the part about what we're doing in New York City on MLK Day, but the part on how can folks support us, I didn't touch on that. So I don't know if you want to focus on that part or you want to do the whole thing, because I know you got.
If you hit it, then I'm sure it's hit. I would just say the way people could support us is multifold, multi-level. They can get in touch with Mark in terms of the car caravan, because we want to be socially conscious with this virus still out there, and understanding that even when you get the shot, that the shot is just a hoax. To believe that, do your research. So we don't want to put any of our people in peril and harm's way. So the caravan is one way, probably maximum of 3 people, ideally 1. And they can come out. They can come out on that day. We'll be there from 2 to 4. I'll be there earlier setting up. And they can tell other people about it. And just, even if they can't make it out, how people can also help out is we have a saying that it's not a day off. Just because you ain't got to go to work and the government and your job is paying for it, but it's a day on because there's work to be done. There's a reason why we got that day, that we don't have to go to work. We worked hard for that day. Lives were lost for us to get that day. Like they said, Dr. King was a political prisoner. He gave up a lot of his family time because he was locked up. John Lewis, who we lost in transition in 2020, said he got in good trouble. So it was a lot of people that worked and that was locked up and got into good trouble. So if you can't make it out there, have a discussion. Have a discussion about not just Dr. King, but what it means to struggle, what it means to break down these chains, these barriers. So either you can make it in car caravan by getting in touch with Mark, you can come there and feel the vibration and feel motivated by coming here, inspirational speakers from a multitude of grassroots organizations, people that you will admire. If you know them, you'll admire them. If you don't, you'll walk away with admiration and adulation for them. Or you just can go and prepare at home. Like I always said, I'm educated in my own right. I'm not a school teacher, but I teach. And if I was a teacher, the one report that nobody could write on Black History Month is about Martin Luther King, because we have too many Black heroes and sheroes. I, as a teacher, would talk about Dr. King. Everybody else would have to write about somebody else. So on his day, I would ask and challenge people to have a discussion about him, but be inclusive. Be inclusive of all the liberators, and maybe even look at somebody, get creative. Look at somebody in your neighborhood. The people that's in front of you is people that you can pick from. So that's how you can contribute and participate. You can participate through the caravan by getting in touch with Mark. You can participate because it's participatory by coming there, bring your young ones there. Out of mouths of babe, we have to keep this moving forward. Or you can participate by doing your research and have discussion within the comfort of your home, because it is going to be January.
Right.
Mark, just to throw one other thing in, I didn't mention, there will be cultural programs going on that weekend.
Definitely. Schomburg will be probably.
Culture is a weapon for our liberation. So that's already being set up. There's an album about to come out from Russell Maroon Schultz. And every month there's going to be something going on throughout this year. So he comes home. He got to come home now.
Yes.
He's got cancer, COVID, and come on, he's got to come home. So all that's going on. So I need all this information from y'all so we can make sure that everybody has more than enough things to do for them 4 days this weekend. From sunrise until sunset, we're going to have stuff going on and beyond.
Well, normally what they do in that time, they do have a lot of cultural things. Schomburg one in particular, a lot of times they had a MLK High School on 68th Street in Amsterdam. I know it's been years where his daughter Bernice was a keynote speaker, but during the COVID time, I don't know what the format is, but I would tell anybody if they're thinking about going to, whether it be Abyssinia, wherever they normally went in the past, I would tell them to call up ahead and find out if they're doing anything, what's the criteria, what's the amount of people, so in case you got to go early, you don't go and get turned away.
Yeah, all our stuff is virtual, brother.
All right. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna go around. We're gonna allow people to have some last words, and then Bill, you're gonna close us out. Is that all right?
Yeah, fine, sure.
All right. So thanks everybody for being here tonight. We'll have our show again next week, Monday, and hopefully we'll be able to get a report back from Sister Sharon, Brother Shep, and of course, Bill and I will be here probably exhausted from the day's activities, but we'll be here exhausted but probably energized.
Yep.
So Sharon, if you have some last words for our audience, now's the time.
I don't really. I think this has been a tremendous program. I just like to say free them all. And Brother Shep, I got to get your email and we'll send you the information on Baltimore and what's been taking place in terms of the jails and the ICE detention center, and a great program. And I look forward to the Dr. King Jr. protest across the country.
All right.
And thank you, Brother Mark.
Thank you.
And Brother William.
Straight ahead.
Straight ahead. Brother Shep, last words for our audience?
Yeah, last words is just this. When we sit back and we talk about how things are hard and difficult, just keep in mind, we got freedom fighters. A lot of them been in solitary confinement for 20, 30 years in a row. They're just victims of medical neglect, brutality, torture, and all those things. And so we got to bring them home. They've made that sacrifice. The little things that we do, they're important, but it don't even compare. So let's remember that as we, when we move forward.
All right.
Free them all.
Free them all. Bill, close us out, brother.
Okay. I just want to go back to January the 6th. And I want everybody to remember what we saw and what was on display. It was white privilege in full display. And I want you to also realize that they talk about the police department, but also keep in mind how the police department started as militias during slave time, and how they also, I think the first paid police department was in Boston in the late 1800s. And it was always about protecting white people's interests, their financial interests. So because of that, the narratives have not changed. It's 2020 and the bright light was shown on, and here we are turning the calendar 2021. And it's a clear reminder, making it crystal clear that the struggle continues. Nothing has changed. They may be more polite. They may let a few of us in, but at the end of the day, they do not care, and they will give up their firstborn for their own selfish gain. And in case of that is, here you have a presidency that was very racist, very sexist, and very divisive. And he knew in that Capitol building, some of his most staunch reporters, he did not care. He did not care about McConnell. He did not care about Pence. So if you want to think that here's somebody that's white that will give up on their own people, that they're going to stand there and they're going to protect us, it starts with us. It starts with us and it ends with us. And I'll close with the phrase that I start with. Either you're a change taker or a change maker, because change is going to come straight ahead.
All power.
More power to the people.
All power to the people. Free them all.
All right, freedom more.
And defend your hood.